Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Live with Mel. This episode is brought to you by Yellow Cab Company of DC. If you're looking to avoid rideshare prices, then check out the Yellow Cab Company of DC when you are in the nation's capital. It is the start of Black History Month, and during this time, the month is dedicated to celebrating the accomplishments of Black Americans throughout history. Black History Month is extremely important to the African American community and to the nation as a whole. But as we are entering into Black History Month, we are seeing that several historically Black colleges and universities are receiving threats. They're receiving bomb threats, and it is putting several campuses into lockdowns and also postponing classes. Now, several schools, several HBCUs have been reporting that they are getting threats, and they're taking these threats very seriously. Many of the schools, many of the universities, many of the colleges are asking their students to shelter in place until they can be sure that there's no present danger on the campuses. Other universities are postponing classes or canceling classes until they can have an investigation and clear the area to ensure that none of the students, faculty, and staff are in any present danger. Now, all of the threats are targeting historically Black colleges and universities. Many have been receiving different threats, and right now the number looks as though 12 HBCUs have received threats between Monday and today, Tuesday. Now, one of the first universities to get the threats was Howard University. So they issued a shelter-in-place order early Tuesday. Now, Howard came out and said a bomb threat against the university is being investigated. All persons on campus are advised to shelter in place until more information is available. Now, while these universities are seeing these bomb threats happening right at the beginning of Black History Month, there were bomb threats made earlier in January, around January 5th, against other HBCUs. And at that time, the FBI did investigate those bomb threats and found that they were unsubstantial, that they weren't actually real bomb threats, but rather people just calling in and making threats. And they had no desire to actually go through with the threats. However, any type of threat made on any university should be taken very seriously. And there's no way to know if the threats that were made earlier in January and these threats are actually connected. Now, several HBCUs did receive threats, and I'm going to go through a list of some of the schools, but these are not all of the schools. And even at the time of this broadcast, where it's being reported that between the 2 days, about 12 of the historically Black colleges and universities have received threats, we may see the numbers go up in the next coming hours, in the next coming days. But here are some of the universities that did receive threats. The University of District Columbia, Morgan State University, Coppin University, Fort Valley State University, Kentucky State University, Xavier University have all received threats. Again, that's just part of the universities that have received threats. Now, there has been calls for the FBI to take these threats very serious. And now that, again, when any bomb threat is made, especially against a university, the FBI does step in and they do conduct an investigation. They do conduct and see what is going on and what is happening and whether the threats are actually real bomb threats or whether they are essentially pranks. But I don't like to say the term pranks because this goes much further than a prank. However, we do know that people do like to instill fear in people, especially if they have some type of agenda. And hopefully that is all this is, but the FBI is taking this seriously and they are investigating to see whether historically Black colleges at the moment are in real and imminent danger. Now, again, starting this week on Monday, many HBCUs did start to receive bomb threats. And going into Black History Month, and because it's HBCUs, it looks as though these are racially charged threats, essentially against Black people, Black universities, historically Black universities and colleges. And because of this, many people do think that it could possibly be an organization that's racially motivated. Now, in the same token, one of the callers in Florida did call in and say that they were part of a neo-Nazi group called Adam Waffen. But again, that's just what one of the callers said. And we have to wait until the FBI verifies whether this is actually part of the neo-Nazi group's Adam Waffen. But I did want to let you guys know that one of the callers did call in and state that they were part of the neo-Nazi group. But the FBI is continuing to investigate this. They're putting a lot of manpower and a lot of energy into investigating this because, again, at the end of the day, this is essentially going to be hate crime. It's going to be a hate crime, and it is racially motivated. Now, Representative Bernie Thompson, Democrat from Mississippi, and also the chairman of the House Committee of Homeland Security said that he was working with the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, as well as with leaders of the HBCUs to get the answers that they deserve. So it does look as though it's not only the FBI, but Homeland Security stepping in to see what is going on with these threats, to see what's going on and who is behind these threats. Now, at the moment, there is not a lot of information. The investigations have started, and at the HBCUs where the bomb threats were made, some are still in lockdown, others have cleared the area, and it's essentially said that the campus is not in any imminent danger, and there's others that are still postponing classes. Now, depending on how many more bomb threats that come out, we'll see whether or not campuses can go back to having classes as normal. But at this time, many campuses are doing several different things to ensure the safety of the students, the staff, faculty, etc. But it is causing a lot of fear amongst people in historically Black colleges and universities. It's causing fear in students, faculty, and staff of that are at those institutions. And then other historically Black colleges and universities are also in fear as well because they don't know if they're going to also receive bomb threats as well. Now, the FBI said that the FBI is aware of a series of bomb threats around the country, and we're working with our law enforcement partners to address any potential threats. So the FBI is stepping in. They're taking this very seriously, and they want to ensure that none of these threats actually come to fruition. They want to ensure that no historically Black college or university does end up with a bomb going off, or if there are bombs on the campus, that they are able to deal with it swiftly. But at this time, again, things can change in the next hour, week, or whatnot. They have not found any bombs. It looks as though the threats are coming in, but there are no actual bombs on the campuses at this moment. But again, they're still taking these threats very, very seriously. Now, the White House did say on Monday that they are aware of the threats and they are calling the threats disturbing. They're essentially saying that they're disturbing threats and that they know that the FBI is looking into it. And then let's go ahead and go to the comments. So Joanna says, "It's so sad. This country is saturated with so much racism and ignorance. I guess these racists are truly threatened by the intelligence of people of color, so they pick Black History Month, to be bullies," shaking my head. And then Joanna does bring up a very interesting point there, where she says there's so much racism in this country. I know a lot of times people go back and forth and they do say that racism isn't alive and well in the United States, while other people, specifically Black people, say that racism is still alive and well in the United States, even though it doesn't show itself the same way that it showed itself 40, 50, 60, 100 years ago. By having people call in and make bomb threats specifically against historically Black colleges and universities does show that there are still racists in this country and that there is still a lot of work to do, that the nation needs to do in order to eradicate racism from the nation. And again, they're specifically targeting historically Black colleges which allowed Black people to get an education at times when Black people weren't necessarily allowed at many public and private institutions. Historically Black colleges have done so much for the Black community. And graduates and alumni from these universities have gone on to do great things. By these threats going against Black universities, historically Black universities and colleges, especially in Black History Month and near Black History Month, because again, some of the threats did start yesterday, it is obviously something that is racially charged. It is something that the perpetrators are doing against Black people. And I'm going to bring Joanna's comment back up because I do think she makes a good point. She says, I guess these races are truly threatened by the intelligence of people of color, so they pick Black History Months to be bullies. And also they targeted universities that are historically Black. So again, there isn't much information coming out, but the FBI is working diligently to try and see where these threats are coming from, if they are actual bombs on the campuses, or if they're just threats to instill fear in the universities. Now, again, earlier in January, like I stated before, several historically Black colleges and universities did receive threats as well. So the threats that we're seeing that really started on Monday may be part of a bigger picture, because in January, that is when a few universities did start receiving the threats. But they said that those threats were essentially unfounded, that those threats, there weren't actually bombs there. However, if more and more threats come in, even if they're just people making threats to instill fear, it could also potentially cause more threats to come in and someone to actually follow up on these threats. And that is one of the main reasons why the FBI, Homeland Security, and everyone else involved, including local law enforcement agencies, do need to take these threats seriously. They do need to dig into these threats and see where they're coming from and what essentially sparked these threats. Now, again, one of the callers, I mentioned this earlier in the broadcast, one of the callers that did call in Florida did say that he was part of a neo-Nazi organization called Adam Waffen. Now, with the other calls that were received, there was no mention of a neo-Nazi group. But one of the calls that came in from Florida did mention the neo-Nazi group. At this time, law enforcement agencies aren't sure if the call is actually connected to the neo-Nazi group or if the caller was just using that organization essentially as a scapegoat. So guys, let me know what your thoughts are about the bomb threats that are going on at the moment. Again, the universities are receiving bomb threats. The historically Black universities and colleges are going into lockdown. When they do receive the threats, they're taking it very seriously. The FBI is stepping in, they're taking it very seriously. And now Homeland Security is involved and they're taking it seriously as well. Now, again, many historically Black colleges and universities are fearful because they are the ones being targeted. And even universities who haven't received the threat just yet, or maybe they'll never receive the threat, are also fearful because they believe that they may be next on the list. At this time, we just have to wait to see what the FBI finds. Again, there's not a lot of information coming out about what's going on. Essentially, what we do know is that in January, there were some threats made, but they were found to be empty threats. And then we do know between Monday and today, Tuesday, that more threats have come in. And at the time of the research, so the time that my team did the research for this show, about 12 HBCUs, about 12 had received threats. And again, that number can change throughout the day. We do see that whoever's making these calls, whoever's making these threats, are contacting more and more and more HBCUs. So at the time the research was conducted, it was 12. So guys, let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Molly. I come live every single Monday through Wednesday to bring you guys current events and let you know what's happening across the globe and right here in this great nation as well. And happy Black History Month to everyone. This is the start of Black History Month, so happy Black History Month. And I will see everyone bright and early tomorrow morning. Have a great day, everybody.